Hey, what up, YouTubers? It's your boy, The Visionary, and welcome to another episode of Fireside Chats, bringing you the latest and current events and news that matter to me the most. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode will be titled "The DNA of Domestic Terrorism," and the reason why I came up with this title, in particular, I was going over some old videos that I had did on the whole Adam Lanza Sandy Hook shooting. Hold on. Just drink of water. Um, Basically the videos that I did on the Sandy Hook massacre shooting event and situation, and I wanted to sit down and do a video segment on just the basic underpinning domestic terrorism, right? Because domestic terrorism is something that's mainly really a tool of the state, and it's used for different effects for different reasons, either against the people that they are governing or against other foreign nations and so on and so forth. It's usually state funded or state operated or state led or state controlled in and of itself, and it's rarely, very rarely, is actual terrorism, either domestic, foreign or domestic, really controlled and funded or operated or guided by non-state agents or actors, pretty much, right? So we look at these situations that have been happening for the past couple of years, like all these random massacres and shootings, right? In particular, a little past at the beginning of Obama's second administration, right? So you look at the shootings, right? You have the movie theater shooting, the Sandy Hook shooting, the Boston bombing situation, and all that stuff. And what one person can pick up on is that there's a definite pattern in how these things are carried out. There's a definite pattern in the I would say the methodology and the apparent lack of ideology that are backing these particular acts of terrorism or mass shootings, right? Because there's a difference between random mass shootings and actual acts of terrorism. Like in particular, if you're talking about the Boston bombing, that's a supposed act of terrorism, and then you look at the Aurora movie theater shooting with James Holmes, that's a massacre. A random individual nut supposedly goes on a rampage, starts shooting people. Then you have the Sandy Hook shooting, same situation, just a bit different, but two different situations. But the thing is that within each situation, right, if you look at the Sandy Hook shooting, right, one can pick up and notice that there is definitely a orchestrated push or agenda to try to shape, mold, and implant a certain narrative within the public consciousness, right? The public dialogue specifically, right? Because whenever you get a situation where someone does something very drastic or dangerous or violent or destructive, the logical thing is to sit down and think, yo, there's a reason why a person does something. It doesn't have to be completely logical, but there's a reason why someone does something, right? You know what I mean? If you look at the whole, the George Dorner manhunt that happened a few months ago, right? Ex-military Marine guy, he becomes a California police officer, and he's subject to racism and a whole bunch of other shit. He snaps and plans like basically a one-man war against the California Police Department, shoots up one or two people that were involved in some bullshit, and then he gets killed himself, right? So you look at a situation like this, and if you sit down and you think about it, right, George Dorner, he had a motive, right? He had a reason and a motive, of why he did it, right? He wrote a manifesto on what's going on, right? Listen, there has been widespread corruption in the California Police Department, and he detailed the history, like, he detailed his life story, and then he detailed his history with, the police department, and he talked about all the stories that he's went through about all the racism and all the bullshit that, the California Police Department were involved in. Now he tried to stand up in the fight against that shit, and how he tried to protect, perps that get arrested and how they get mistreated and stuff like that. So there was a real reason why he snapped. There was a trigger that pushed him over the edge, right? To the point where he had a manifesto. He had a manifesto. He had a history, so people could see, there was a reason why he snapped. It wasn't just random, right? So you look at situations like that, and then you look at the other ones where it's kind of like, okay, Adam Lanza, aka the Sandy Hook massacre shooter, right? Supposedly this guy had mental issues, like he was autistic or something like that. Was on medications. Lived with his mom. She was a single mother. Was divorced for the past couple of years. He has a brother, but doesn't live in the same house. So he randomly one day snaps, takes his mom's gun, shoot the moms in the head, then goes off to the school and shoots a bunch of kids, and then at the end of the day shoots himself, right? So you look at the story and you go, why did he do this, right? So they try to paint the narrative as if, okay, well, he snapped because he got into an argument with his mom at the school, and he said fuck this, and then that's why he took the gun and shot his mom. And side note, asterisk, he shoots up the school, he shoots up his computer for some odd reason, which makes no fucking sense, and then he goes to the school and shoots some people up, period. Now the thing is that, number one, at the first beginning days of the story itself, they said that his mom was a teacher at the school and that she was taking care of him as he was going to the same school, and that wasn't true. Then they go, oh well, he goes to the school. He was going to the school, and it was a particular teacher, who he got into a very heated argument about something with, and then that's the reason why he went there and shot it up. And then it turned out that wasn't true. He wasn't going to school because he was an older kid, in his late teens, and this was like kind of like a pre-elementary school type place. So you're seeing this and you're going, wait, this makes no sense. So now there's just this random motive. Like, there's no reason why he would go to this place. Like, if he had an argument with his mom, he would have just shot the mom and then shot the fucking computer, and that's it. That would have ended it. But then he goes to a completely random place, shoots it up, and then shoots himself when the special forces and police come to take him down. That makes no sense. No one does nothing for any reason. People do shit for a reason. There's always a trigger. There's always something. There's always something that they write down, a video message or a written note or something like that, where they tell you this is the reason why I did this, so on and so forth, blah blah blah. When you get situations like that, you know what I mean, in conjunction with other situations, in terms of being in the middle of a nexus of constant stress and pressure and terror, aka actual terrorism, domestic terrorism, where every other week there's always a situation where it's kind of like you can't go to a public place. You have malls, schools, movies, all these different things. This is a pattern that's being orchestrated by the state. That's what people need to understand, because now you can't go. Think about it. Think about all the recent shootings that happened. You had the mall shootings, you have the Sikh shootings, the church, the where you go to the what do you call it, the mosque. You go to a mosque or something like that. There was a shooting with the Sikh mosque. I remember like a few years ago. Then there's the Adam Lanza, and in fact that happened right after Adam Lanza, like I think a few days or a few weeks after that happened. So you have the movie theater shooting. Then you have the churches and the mosque and the temples and stuff like that. Then you have malls and stuff. Then you have schools. Period. If you look at all these different scenarios, right? All these different places, all these different scenarios, there's a specific pattern in what's happening in terms of them trying to create an environment of fear and terrorism where, oh, I'm not safe going to a mall. I'm not safe going to a movie theater. I'm not safe going to school. You know what I mean? That's specifically what the fuck is going on. Because it's too coincidental that people are just snapping and going to places where massive groups of people go to relax or have fun or get some education or entertainment, stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's something that people need to think about with that specifically. And you look at all the other shootings. You look at the Aurora movie theater shooting. Oh, he was high as a kite. He just randomly went on a shooting spree, right? And they try to build a historical narrative for him. Oh, first he was a regular guy, right? He was a regular guy who, he was a bright, straight A student, and he was going to school and this and that and blah 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 blah. And it's like, oh wow. Then the narrative starts to change. Oh, he had a girlfriend, but the girlfriend left him. Oh, he was paying rent at this place, but he couldn't pay rent anymore, so it was about to evict him. Oh, he was in school and he was about to get his doctorate, but he failed the test and he stopped going because of blah 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 blah. You start to see the problem now, because it doesn't make sense that this person just randomly snaps and shoots up a place and does a whole bunch of bad shit, and then now we have to blame the guns, right? Because he was a natural. But no, that doesn't make any sense, because a logical person would be like, no, there's a reason why he did this. Then they have to change the narrative, like, oh, you see, now the narrative is like he had a lot of bad problems, and ergo he became dangerous when he got handed hold those guns. Now the issue here with all these different shootings, the Aurora movie theater shooting, the Sandy Hook, even the shooting that happened in Kenya, the shooting that happened at the Sikh temple a few years ago, right? You look at these situations, right? What is the main common denominator? It's the fact that automatic guns were used in these places, and it's been a long known fact that the federal government has been trying its hardest to get people to give up their weapons. Period. The right to bear arms. Period. And if you pay attention to what's going on, if you look at the political logic in these shootings, you will understand that, hey, when they try to build the public narrative against what these events are portraying, right, in terms of you have regular citizens who are normal, logical people just snapping and shooting people up, you have to stop and go, well, you're never going to win that because, A, number one, from one perspective, you know, there's reasons why people do shit. And if there's a reason why people do shit, then you'll have to address those reasons, period. Now, collectively speaking, if all these people are doing stuff for specific reasons, right? Different reasons, but specific reasons, it stems to the reason that you have to look at why those reasons pop up. And it stops people from actually thinking about going, okay, there must be something inherently wrong, I guess, with society or within the system itself. Because there's something inherent and inimically destructive or corrupting within the system that causes people to snap left and right, if that's the case. And that's the narrative that I guess they want you not to look at. But again, it supports their case. Like, oh, you see shit is bad, people become dangerous when they have weapons, and when stuff is going bad, we need to deal with this shit. So that's from one perspective that they don't want you to look at and go, okay, well, maybe we need to stop and think about why the system is making people snap, because there must be something wrong inherently with the status quo and with the structure of the system that's causing these problems or these snaps to happen, period. Now, if you look at the other perspective, which I was explaining before, it's the fact that these things, if you have these characters that have no motive, they're just random, that supposedly have mental issues or whatever, that's nothing more than a state orchestrating these attacks as covert ops to scare people into giving up their right to bear arms. That's all it is, period. Magically, you always have a shooting that happens in a public place, and it's happening all bunched together within a span of a few months. That's mathematically, that's fucking impossible for that to happen consistently like that. And people need to look into that shit. It's something that just doesn't make sense. So these are things you have to look out for. Number one, when the event happens and they try to do a profile of the perp in question, if they say anything about him having a history of mental issues or mental problems, or he's doing medication, that's bullshit. All they're doing is it's a patsy or a dupe that they're just setting up. Period. Because I think over the last couple of months, the latest shootings all happened to deal with people who had mental issues or mental problems or whatever the fuck it is. Period. Or they stopped taking the medication. That's bullshit. So you have regular, normal acting individuals who take medication, but they get off the medication and somehow they get their hands on guns and start shooting people. That's bullshit. That is complete bullshit. People need to think about that. That makes no sense. So, number one, that's pure sign that something is up when they keep saying, oh, there's a mental issue, the person is taking medications, and that's the reason why that person snapped. That's bullshit. That's one sign. Number two, the unclear, structured modus operandi or reason for them for doing something. If you have a perp who does something like a mass shooting and you can't find out why they did it, there's no written note, there's no video message, there is no, I would say, friend history where they talk to their friends and the friends are like, yo, yeah, he had ideas of doing this shit for years, or he's always been an angry person, or yada yada yada. Again, that's another sign. There's no actual historical history of the person leaving behind something that says, this is the reason why I did it. If they just go on a rampage and there's no reason why, that's bullshit. It's just someone being set up by the state. That's basically what it is. Someone being set up by the state to do dumb and stupid shit in order to promote this whole anti-gun, gun control registration law bullshit. That's the main reason why that's happened. If you see these two things consistently, and on number three, the next thing is right after the event happens, if you have a media backlash where you have politicians and political leaders standing up and rallying, going, "Yo, we need to pass these laws to limit gun massacres and stuff like that." Again, a sure sign that the administration and the actual the government, the White House, the State Department, the apparatus of the state itself is promoting these attacks. They're actually carrying them out to scare the people into giving up their right to bear arms. It's as simple as that. If you keep seeing those three things, number one, there's no they leave no reason for them to the reason telling people why they did it. Number two, if supposedly the media says, oh, they have mental issues or whatever. And number three, when you see the politicians and public leaders jumping up and going, oh, we need to pass these laws. If you see those three things, then you know that entire shit is a fucking setup. Period. And that's it. Alright, thank you for listening. Take care. Peace.